Hunters in the Snow is a great painting by Peter Bruegel the Elder. And we always say in class, Bruegel is frugal because he paints peasants mostly. So that's how always that we remember the subject matter that he paints. If you ever wanted to feel like cold and just on a warm day, you got to look at this painting because it's so realistic, so lovely, and does a great job of capturing the seasons. So, or at least the season of winter. So let's go ahead and go into context. Um, First of all, Bruegel is from the Netherlands, so Holland area, and that's a very flat European country. So this isn't a specific image of the Netherlands. So you couldn't go and find this exact place there in Holland. It is too mountainous. So what we think is this was a combination of memories and maybe some of the locales that Bruegel was familiar with. And then I also combined his experience like visiting the Alps in Italy. And that would be more of what you see in the background where it's mountainous. So it is not an exact uh, location that was, that he was painting. So that's first and foremost. And in Northern Europe, where Bruegel is painting, it was very common to paint months of the year in art and then to reflect the different activities you would do during the months. In fact, there are quite a few illuminated manuscripts that would do that, where you'd have, let's say, the month of May, and then you would show like a spring day and then some of the characteristic activities that you would do in May, and then you'd have some in February. Now, this particular painting isn't part of a book. It was actually part of a series of 6 paintings that Bruegel was commissioned to paint for a wealthy banker. This is one of those 6. And instead of painting 12 paintings with all of the different months, January through December, Bruegel decided to paint the seasons. So 6 seasons and the activities that are typical of those seasons. And so only 5 paintings remain out of the 6. So clearly there are maybe like a couple paintings per season, spring, summer, fall, winter. So there are a couple of paintings for different seasons. So this happens to be, of course, one of the winter paintings. And let's go ahead and go into this one. One thing I will mention is that we're again focused on peasant life and what life is like for a particular grouping of people during this time period. So in terms of content, you feel like you're above looking down at an angle at the scene. So what we call that more is the viewer, in terms of how the viewer is seeing it, is with a bird's eye view. And that is definitely the feel. That's why some things are very small. Not only are they away from you from a distance, but you are also looking at it from up above, like you're one of the birds in the sky, like the birds that you see in the trees and the one flying in the sky. This is what we call a genre scene. So this is definitely one of your vocab terms. A genre scene is a scene of everyday life. So we'll have these throughout, especially up in the north. You have a lot of genre scenes in the Northern Baroque eras. You have people here going around hunting. They're playing out on the ice, games and different things. They're cooking food and keeping warm. All of those things are just average, everyday activities, nothing grand, nothing overly special and unique, just the beauty of everyday activity. And not only for anybody, but again, for peasants. This painting, I believe, just gives you a great sense of depth. Remember, going back to Roman style painting with style 2, definitely atmospheric perspective here, where the colors in the background are more cooler colors like blues, grays, and so on. And the detail gets a little bit more fuzzy and hazy versus the warmer colors in the foreground and more detail that you can see. I think the other way that you showcase depth is with the angle that the image is depicted, you seem to have these, you look in the foreground first, and then those trees that look dead, but again, they've gone dormant for the winter. Those trees create this great diagonal line that just brings your eye to then the background spaces. And then you have smaller figures and so on that helps you to get this sense of depth. But you have this great diagonal kind of looking at the scene from above at an angle, and that just moves your eye through the space. I would say that hunters in the snow, so you're going to focus in on the hunters, and the hunters don't seem to have much success at their hunt. I know this because the dogs are very thin, so the time period, in the winter, it's difficult to find food. I think one of the dogs has a fox, or one of the hunters has a fox. I can't remember. Oh, it's the hunter has a fox, just one animal that they've hunted and were successful at capturing. But other than that, they've not had much success. And so their heads are down. You don't see their individual faces. You get a little Giotto sense of influence here for realism. They represent all the people here kind of struggling and going about their daily business of having to survive, getting food. And then that kind of is continued in the left where you see the buildings and the people stoking the fire. Stay warm, but also hopefully to cook some of the food that was captured. What I love about too the foreground, just kind of as a notion of how much detail Bruegel is putting in here, just the footprints of both the dogs and the hunters in the snow is a really nice sense of realism, and not just attention to the realism of this landscape and this narrative scene. Then as you go back with the trees, you see people on the ice, you see people playing games, carrying things around. You see a village in the distance with a church. I'll show you that in a close-up in a moment. And then you see that, again, those mountains in the background. And just to note on the church, the small church in the distance, kind of just off to the right and in the center, this is typical of your northern Baroque images, especially from Protestant countries like the Netherlands. They were not Catholic, they were Protestant. And, of course, they're religious, but they're not like the Catholic Church images that you'll see in Spain and in Italy from this time period that are blatant, like images of religion with the Holy Family and Jesus and so on. The Protestants are going to focus more on the Word of God. They're going to focus less on icons, and they're going to give you a hint of their religious, faith with a church here, but not make that the center focus of the image. Here's some close-ups here. And what I do like about Bruegel, again, is that he combines the intimate, and again, intimate meaning everyday life activities, private moments of people going about their business of daily life, and then sets them into these oftentimes landscapes, but with a big scope of life too, the nature. So it's oftentimes like man and his relationship with nature and the everyday kind of activities he has to do, but also keeping in mind and showing the bigger picture of life too. Religion with the church, you can see in a close-up on the left, nature, and our place within nature. So Bruegel, again, one of those really great genre scene artists from the Northern Baroque era within the Netherlands, again, a Protestant country, and the focus on peasants and genre scenes is typical of Bruegel. Images that really capture the reality of life in a moment for these people living at this time period.